Story 1. The road I spend most of my Thursday nights driving. I drop the girl off at home, and then I just go anywhere I need though. See few small moments where I can feel completely free from everybody. There's a road that stretches around an old garden shop that my friends all worked at for a few years. It started just outside south of the city, a little road that veered right so suddenly that I was doing 20 under the limit just so I can spot it on time. It led past the garden shop and into straight blackness. I've been on that road a few times with some other friends, and I can predict most of the turns and stops far before I see them. As I left the light of the city, I flashed on my high beams and made the sudden right onto the road I must have turned into quickly. Gravel and dust filled the back window of my car, sort of a dark cloud that took away all light from the city behind me just for a moment. The tires lost traction, and I start to veer into the ditch, fortunately saving myself with only inches to spare. My little Toyota Tercel is not the best thing for dirt roads, but it's enough to get what I want out of it. The road stretches far beyond my sight, fading into a chilling darkness. It has a few houses, small farmlands, and barns strewn along it, each with their own twisting paths. The trees above loom over, cracking all the light coming from the sky above. Long branches stretch towards the ground, like long fingers pointing. I pick up more and more speed as the road starts to sink, rating out, watching the edge of my headlights guide my way to a tranquil place, far beyond the worries of mine or any others. Up on the lip of a hill is a spot that overlooks the city, a popular place for many of the teenagers here in the South, and often seen with many couples solidifying their nights and the occasional group of stoners who like to simply watch things the road leads up to. This place, curving right until the top is reached. As I climb it, I can already see the taillights of 4 or 5 cars already up there, all minding their own business. I see a darker road, far less traveled upon, emerge on my left, avoiding the city watchers. I've never seen this road before, but I figure that if I have a full tank and stay 1 hour within the city, what the hell might be worth my while to see something I haven't seen before. This road runs directly west and is completely straight, with no houses, farms, or barns peppered along its curb. Even the trees have disappeared, opening up the view to a vast farmland with hills on both sides of the road, just cutting off the sight of any further land. Perfect. I stay on this road for a long time. My pod is on shuffle, and much of the music is hitting all the right notes I want to listen to, mostly that of Led Zeppelin. There is nothing like blasting Stairway to shut out all the noise outside. It must have been 20 minutes before I started to worrying. The hills on both sides of the car have grown so close to the road that they have turned into walls, blocking any sight around me, a tiny valley that seemed to stretch into infinity. I figure I should just turn around and come back the way I came. I didn't make any turns, so it should be easy for me to follow it. Lines the way back, so I pulled over and made a U-turn. I even signaled for it. I don't know why I did, but for a second, that signal light caught something that stopped me in my tracks. It was tall and looked like a man, but it couldn't have. It could have been a bush that the shadows made to look taller, even thinner. I waited there for a few seconds with my headlights on that spot, but there wasn't anything. My car kicked into the highest gear and I was sailing. I wasn't going any faster than I needed to be, since there are tons of deer that like to run out an FR out of things out here, but fast enough that I was breaking the limit more than I was obeying it. From behind me a light started to fill my mirror. I couldn't make out what it was at first, but it was definitely headlights, and they were coming closer. I start to slow down, but still keeping momentum, in the case that it might be one of the highway rangers making the rounds on the deserted roads. But something told me that whoever this person was, they weren't carrying a badge. Closer and closer the car got, gaining on me like they were being chased by something. As the car became it zoomed past me in the oncoming lane, honking frantically. It could be a couple kids out for a kegger, I don't know. It didn't really alarm me until I looked in the rear view again. Behind me was a face with no features, pale as paper, staring at me. It didn't move, didn't even react to the bumps on the road. It was just there, like a picture on a screen, staring back at me. I was so freighted that I almost lost control of my car, drifting into both the left and right lane as I tried to grasp myself. I looked behind me, and there was nothing, not a single thing. The air hung fuller than before, almost damp, and every breath filled my lungs with a thick, moist air. It was the same thing as earlier. From the turning signal, I am terrified. I pushed down hard on the gas, starting to speed past and touch places on my speedometer. I began to wonder if this is what that other person was running from, and if they got out. Then I see a dim red light ahead of me, the other car. This time it is going slower, almost a cruising speed. I don't know if they think they are okay, but if it just got to me, then it is most certainly able to get to them. I start to honk frantically at the car as I speed past it. In the oncoming lane, it doesn't move. I look in my rear view again, and then I see something. Not it, but me driving the other car. I start to feel an upset feeling in my stomach, like I'm about to throw up. That couldn't have been me. It couldn't have. I shake my head to compose myself and put the road back into my view. My eyes cleared, and the headlights behind me disappear into the blackness. I am finally out of this, and I can start to see the hills spread apart to where they were in the beginning. I let out one laugh at the situation and rubbed the sleep from my eyes. When I opened them up again, that thing stood in front of my car, dark and hunched over, staring back at me with the same non-existent eyes. My wheels catch on the gravel as I try to avoid, and I run full speed into the ditch, flipping the car over. I began to think about why I chose this road. There could have been any other. I crawl out of the wreckage with as much strength as I have left, and just before I fall asleep, a Toyota Tercel is driving down the road I just came, blasting Stairway to Heaven. I didn't even bother to scream. Story 2 entombed. My life is not what you would call privileged. It has been one of endless work and sacrifice. Born into a life of slavery, my life has never truly been my own. My time has always been dictated by others, when to eat and sleep, when to rise and when to rest. Very little of my day could I ever call my own. Still, it could be worse. I am far more fortunate than Earth, the bastard child of a pharaoh and his handmaid. maiden. My life has been afforded more luxury than most in my station. Rather than toil away in the perpetual darkness of the mines or be subjected to the back-breaking labor of building the great tombs and monoliths of our great leaders, my job is to tend to the personal stallions of the Pharaoh, as well as his numerous other household creatures, feeding, bathing, cleaning stables. My tasks are tedious and seem to never end, yet I remind myself that it could always be worse. If that should fail to brighten my spirits, I have but to look down the palace walls at the thousands of souls struggling to survive each day as the slave master cracks his whip. My father has never publicly acknowledged that he and I share the same blood, yet I believe he knows he has always shown far more mercy to me than any other, ignored many of my smaller transgressions. Often I would find him wandering the stables during my routine time to tend to them. We would converse for lengths of time, forming something akin to a relationship, something I never witnessed and do with any other servant in all my years in the palace. As I aged, more of my father's face began to show in mine. I never boasted to others who my father was for fear of reprisal, but by the age of 12 it was practically undeniable the queen, who I bail, Eve had no prior knowledge of her husband's philandering, grew suspicious, then downright outraged. She began to scorn my mother, constantly having her redo tasks because of inconsequential and of 10 imaginary complaints. On several occasions she had her chained and whipped for minor infractions. She even went so far as to have her in prison for days, with no food once. My father had little choice but to stand idly by and let it happen. I do not fault him for this. Any act of interference would have only raised questions better left unasked. Even the Pharaoh of Egypt, ruler of all the lands, a god on earth, must answer to his queen in one form or another. Once the queen had grown weary of tormenting my mother, and my appearance began to take that of my father. Her attack iron shifted to me. Scorned though she was, I believe the queen had a heart because she was not as vindictive towards me as she had been to my mother. Perhaps she understood that I played no part in the transgressions against her and her marriage, that I was nothing more than the byproduct of said transgressions. No, I don't think she was punishing me so much as she was my parents. All of this was nothing more than inconvenience. The real problem didn't arise for nearly a decade. My father grew ill. The queen summoned the finest healers and holy men in the land, but it was all for naught. The illness progressed, showing no signs of relenting, until the Pharaoh was nothing more than a shell of his former self. It was clear to everyone in the palace that his time was short on this earth. The Pharaoh had a second son. He was born just shy of a year after I was. When we were younger, we often played in the gardens together, but naturally grew apart as we aged, our different stations in life pulling us in opposite directions. To the best of my knowledge, he had never known about our kinship. That was until our father lay on his deathbed and made his final confession to his younger son. No one was present for the conversation, so I cannot be certain of what was said, but I believe the Pharaoh only wanted his younger son to know, that he had a sibling rather than bring us together. This knowledge only served to drive a wedge between us. The prince immediately began to fear for his legacy, worried that I could usurp the throne from him. The thought had never occurred to me to do so, but as I was the elder son, it was technically within my right to do so. My father died during that conversation. At the time I thought nothing of it, but recent events have given me cause to reconsider. I am certain that my younger brother killed our king, ending his life before he could tell anyone else. Our pharaoh was laid to rest days later in his glittering sarcophagus, bound tightly in funereal bandages, as he was placed in his tomb among the riches with which to pay for his trip to the afterlife and several felonies to lead him to it. The new pharaoh, my brother, decreed that as his most trusted and faithful servant, I had been chosen to accompany the deceased into the afterlife to better serve him there. All the masses of Egypt cheered overjoyed at the honor bestowed upon me. Accompanied into the tomb by several guards, I was beaten mercilessly. Barely conscious, I could do nothing but watch through blurred vision as the tomb was sealed, the light becoming nothing more than a sliver before disappearing entirely. I was terrified, but I'd be lying if I denied that the idea of eternity with my father in paradise was appealing. We could finally be together as father and son, not merely king and servant. We would be able to say all the things we were unable to say before. So I did my best to tend to my wounds, wiping away the blood so as not to appear monstrous when we arrived on the other side, and tried to focus on the joyous future ahead. That Washington S. over a week ago. I believe time is slippery when there is no light to track. I don't understand why I haven't been taken to the afterlife yet. I've managed to slake my thirst with some of the wine entombed with my king. I held off as long as I could, but the wait for the afterlife has taken far longer than I ever imagined it would. I pray to the gods that my father will understand and be forgiving when I see him next. Hunger is a pressing matter, though, searching as best I could, groping blindly in the abysmal black, I was unable to find any food. My stomach pains me so, my body is growing weaker by the hour. I fear that if Anubis does not arrive soon, it will be too late for me. But hunger and thirst are the least of my worries. What I fear most are the cats, left without food. Their primal nature is beginning to re-emerge. Just a week ago, they were docile and loving, lying with me as I awaited Anubis's arrival, purring as I stroked their fur. Now I fear sleep, for I've awoken to the pain of bites in my sleep. They have the scent of my blood, the aroma of meat from my open wounds. I can feel them waiting somewhere in the darkness. They watch my very movement, looking for a moment of weakness, waiting to pounce. I can hear them licking their chops eagerly, the near silent padding of their footfalls as they circle me, edging in closer, waiting for my hunger to leave me so weak I won't be able to fend them off any longer. Then they will feast. Their purrs are drawing closer, the menace ringing clear. Please, Anubis, come quickly. Story 3. Delivery boy coming from a poor family. My parents have always struggled to pay for my education. I decided to take some load of them when I got accepted into college and began scouring newspapers and magazines for part-time jobs to earn some money. However, finding a job was easier said than done. The employers all wanted workers who had a completed college education and substantial work experience, both of which I did not have. It was after a couple of months and countless failed interviews that I finally received a phone call. I could recognize the gruff voice on my phone almost immediately. It belonged to Harris, a tough, burly man who managed a private delivery service in a dingy old warehouse by the edge of the town. In his short, curt manner, he notified me that I had gotten the job and that I would start. The following week, I was elated. The job paid relatively well and fitted in perfectly with my school schedule. The job would also provide me with a new bike, something that I couldn't have afforded. In the past, the deliveries I made in the first few months were relatively simple. The furthest place I had to go was just over by the next tee, on a mere half-hour bike ride away. These deliveries were fine, they were fast, they were quick. However, I wanted to go further and earn myself even more money. I finally got my chance when H. Harris rung me up early Saturday morning at 1 a.m. "Charles, you up for a job, Harris? It's 1 a.m. Are you insane?" I moaned. "It's got a double payload." "Are you in or not double payload?" That definitely got my attention. I quickly agreed and made my way towards the warehouse. The package to be delivered was larger and heavier than those that I had delivered before. It also had a faint odor. I couldn't really place my finger on what the smell exactly was, but it was rather disturbing. I had a strong urge to break the number one rule of the business and almost question Harris about the contents of the package. It was only the incentive of the double payload that kept me quiet. The only thing Harris had said to me before he left was get it there as fast as possible. So off I went into the dead of the night. It was a very unnerving experience to be cycling down the empty and dimly lit streets past the countless shop houses that have been closed for the night. The only source of noise was the 24-hour pub a few streets away, its low drone of music and noise furthering fueling my anxiety. The destination was to be a couple of towns away, and if I cycled by the main road it would have taken me about a couple of hours, which was far too long. I decided to take the alternative route through the forest outlining the town, which would effectively cut down my traveling time by half. In hindsight, I probably should have stuck by the main road. Story 4: The Ragdoll Ritual. People always tell you not to play with Ouija boards. Personally, I've never bought into any of that nonsense. I'm not afraid of something invented by a toy company. Every account you hear of weird stuff happening after someone used a Ouija board at a slumber party or whatever is just due to the power of suggestion. If you tell someone that something creepy is going to happen, they'll see something creepy in everything. I'm sorry, I just didn't buy it. I also didn't buy into these stupid ritual memes that keep popping up on the internet. They're these games. I guess you'd call them games, where you go through some ridiculous set of steps, a ritual, to either speak to the dead or predict your future or summon a demon or whatever. They always come with a warning along the lines of "do not try this." Then why post it on the internet? You morons, you want people to do this shit and then report on all the creepy stuff that happened and blah blah blah. Probably the most famous one is Bloody Mary. It's the one where you stand in front of a mirror and repeat Bloody Mary 3 times, and then supposedly this ghost appears to scratch your eyes out. Why would I want to do that? Why do people do any of this bullshit? So I decided to do a little trolling. I went on a forum that discussed topics of the supernatural and paranormal. Those places are full of superstitious schmucks that will eat up anything even remotely disturbing. I posted THE following. Hey everyone, have you heard of the ragdoll ritual? A friend of mine, yeah, we'll call him John Jacob Jingleheimer Smith, told me about it, and I wanted to see if any has actually tried it. I can't seem to find any accounts of it online anywhere. That's because I made it up. Apparently, what you do is take an old doll. Any doll will do, but they say it works best if you use one you made yourself. These things always want you to make stuff. This ritual also seems to work best when performed in the month of August, but you can really do it any time because why not? You take a lock from your own hair and wrap it around the neck of the doll. If your hair is too short or you don't have any small personal piece of yourself will do. A fingernail clipping or even a drop of blood. I didn't really want to encourage bloodletting, but it sounded good. After attaching the personal item from yourself to the doll, wait until midnight. The ritual must beg in exactly at the stroke of midnight or else it will not work. Arbitrary rules. The must-have component. Exactly at midnight, hold the doll tightly in your hands and repeat the phrase. I invite you. I did a random search for demon names on Google to inhabit this object 3 times. After the 3rd time, you will feel the doll move in your hands. This is a sign the demo has accepted your invitation. They always have to accept, don't they? If after the 3rd time you do not feel the doll move, repeat the process. If it still does not move, the demon has not accepted your invitation. You do not need to do anything further. The ritual is over. If you receive an acceptance, place the doll inside a closet or other small space that can be closed. It is very important that you do not open the door until the ritual is complete. You may hear knocking on the door or shambling inside the closet. Do not open the door. The demon is bound to the doll, but if you allow it to roam throughout your home, it may attach itself to something else and refuse to leave after the ritual is over. Because creepy, you may now ask the doll any questions you like. You only have until 1 a.m. Sometimes the doll would answer with a voice, sometimes through knocks on the door signaling yes or no. If you do not complete the ritual by 1 a.m., the demon may be locked inside the doll forever. After you have completed your questions, repeat the phrase, I release you 3 times. Wait until you no longer hear any noise from inside the closet. Then it is safe to open the door afterward. Bury the doll and mark the ground with the symbol of the cross. This will prevent the demon from ever returning. Sounds legit, right? Please, follow the instructions exactly, as failure to do so can have disastrous results. After I posted the ritual, I kept a close eye on it. It took a few days, but soon replies started coming in. Oh my God, you guys, I tried it, and the doll really does move. Please, don't try this ritual. The demon still hasn't left, and I've had nightmares every night since. Fake. Didn't work. This is stupid. I agreed, buddy. But of course, I couldn't say that. I tried it, and when I opened the closet, the doll was gone. What do? I had a few good laughs. The stories start to get more detailed, and some were actually pretty good. I don't know if these people were just delusional or if they were playing along by making things up to add legitimacy, but it was still fun. I read dozens of stories about the ritual going wrong, and a few about how it went perfectly, and the person in question had all their questions answered. One person told of how the demon doll predicted his brother's death. It was fun, but soon it was growing stale, so I moved on to other things. A few weeks went by without me checking the forum. That is until one day, when I came home from work, I went through my usual routine. I pulled off my shoes and my jacket, and when I went to throw them in my closet, something stopped me. There on the floor was a little ragdoll. It looked to be handmade. Around its neck was wrapped a strand of hair. I would have been creeped out, but I had told a friend a while back about my little prank online, and I figured he left it there for me too. Fine, I chuckled to myself and went on about my evening. I opened the refrigerator to grab a beer. Another little doll nestled among the leftovers. I took it out and placed it on the kitchen counter. I had to admire my friend's dedication to the prank, though I was starting to regret ever giving him a key to my house. But that was just the beginning. I started finding dolls everywhere: in the shower, in the kitchen cabinets, in my car, under the sofa, in the fireplace, dolls of every shape and size, some handmade, some factory. Some had hair wrapped around them, some had little droplets of blood. It was then I decided to check the forum. I was astonished at what I found. There were hundreds of posts, all variations of the same thing. Someone had tried the ritual boo. The doll had gone missing. I haven't slept in days. They won't let me. I keep throwing them away, but they always return. All night long, knocking, roaming, whispering, please, I'm begging you, and this is no joke. Do not try the ragdoll ritual. I can't take any more of them. When the doll goes missing, it finds its way to me. I suppose it's a punishment for playing around with things I didn't understand, didn't even believe in. But please, if you have a heart, do not try it. Story 5: The Cold Man. I moved to London in 2011. The reason for my move to London is very simple, but holds a legend so shocking that I'm not even sure of its truth, only its impact. Up until 3 years ago, I lived in the town of Wickford, Essex. For those of you who are not well versed in the geography of southeast England, Wickford is, by definition, a shithole made up of a high street with nothing bigger and a small W.A. Smith's, a cooperative, and a 99p store. It is a boring and scuzzy place, an urban cesspit. I didn't leave because of these factors. Running through Wickford is the River Crouch. Whilst parts of the Crouch in Wickford are slightly nice-looking, the town centre's section of the Crouch is banked by concrete, a provision put into place following the floods back in the late 1950s. The result of this is a complex and very ugly tunnel system, interlocking with the sewers. Now that I have provided sufficient context for the perhaps true myth, I will begin. Asterisk: in 1979, a pupil at a local secondary school, the name of which I genuinely know, why don't know, adding to the idea that this legend is make-believe, was feared. His name was Jack Caden, and whilst a popular womanizer, his mean streak bordered on sadism. He relished in putting his other peers in pain, so much so that he made your average playground bully seem generous. Caden's good looks were unmatched, even though his grin was apparently wolf-like and deeply unsettling. on a fateful, stormy night in the middle of winter 1979, a group of the more commonly targeted of Caden's addicts felt that they had finally taken enough grief from him. They attacked him as he strolled. Led down London Road, the group of 6 boys and 2 girls bagged him. They lugged the powerless Caden to underneath the London Road Bridge and to the partially concealed concrete crotch bank. I'm not too tally sure what those 8 people precisely did to Caden, but I do know that his face was mutilated to the point that he was unrecognizable. They then left him for dead. His body, however, was never found, and the police ceased their search for him. 3 years later, in 1986, one of the girls was found naked at the same place that Caden had been mutilated. Her neck had been snapped, and her entrails were littered on the concrete of the bank. Pinned to her forehead was a note. Cold, the police struggled to find a motive. The unmarried girl had just given birth to a daughter, but the confrontational father, who was not in a relationship with the girl anymore, had an alibi. Unable to find a convincing perpetrator, the case went unsolved. 6 months later, a young sewage maintenance officer was discovered by a co-worker. There were clear signs of a struggle. He had been grabbed from behind and drowned in the water. Again, he was one of those who had attacked Ka. Hidden, for a time just prior to my move to London, I attempted to research these murders. Unfortunately, the records for Wickford's local newspaper, the Weekly Echo, only exist from 1968 to 74, and then from 1995 onwards. The atmosphere that the supposed murders left was toxic, and that was evidence enough for me to want to leave. I did find one article that worked as a kind of evidence. From June 1999 was the report of a 12-year-old girl's disappearance near the river crotch. The author mentioned in passing that the girl's mother had died in 1986 under similar circumstances to the girl's disappearance. I still wonder today if this means that Caden was also after the children of his original victims. Asterisk a further for the boys that had played a part in the CK on Caden were gruesomely murdered in the late 1980s. Because I am unsure of these for men's names, I will refer to them as B1, B2, B3, and B4. B1's decapitated body was left on TH. He rode, and his head just under a sewer grate. Beta was stabbed to death, with the word coal carved into his forehead. B3 and B4 were found sewn together and had clearly starved to death, stuck in the middle of a sewage pipe, clogging the waste. The girl that had not been killed back in 86 was abducted in March 1991, aged around 27. She was childless, just as all of the other victims had been bar the first girl. This girl was never murdered. Instead, she was sighted at the high street 3 months after she was taken, with a blank expression. She jumped in front of a car. There was now only one of Jack Caden's attackers left alive. This boy, now a man, became a father in April 1992. I am his son. Asterisk, allow me to clarify a few details here. I am now 22 years old. I was 19 when I left Wickford. The fact that the first girl's daughter was killed by Caden haunts me to the core. After all, my dad was himself killed and skinned by Jack Caden in 1994. My mother hesitantly told me his story in 2008 after which I went on my researching spree as I asked around and filled in holes in the story. I likewise talked to people who claim that my father had died in a car accident or drowned. I have absolutely no idea why these people would want to actively protect Caden. Maybe they were in denial. One night in 2010, I simply sat down and thought about incidents in my life that I had no explanation for. The more that I look back through my memories, the more that I believed in the legend of Jack Caden. I noted that when I started at the Bromford's Senior School NT, Grange area of Wickford, my mother had specifically ordered me to take a longer route and the more convenient London roadway. Obviously, she was worried for my safety that close to Caden's lair. I remembered an afternoon in the summer holidays when I was around 8 years old. An ugly, bald man that I had assumed to be wearing a very realistic Halloween mask walked up to me as I rode my bike up and down my street. He asked me if I wanted to meet my dad. I told the man that my father was dead, to which he pulled a very sinister expression, strangely visible through the mask, I had thought, and remarked, I know. I was totally creeped out and biked home faster than ever before. So why did I abruptly drop everything and make the move in 2011? My mother died of cancer in late 2010. I inherited her house. This heightened my sense of fear day to day. Every time I heard the wind, I jumped. Every time I saw my reflection, my heart skipped a beat. In November 2011, more than 3 decades after Caden's mutilation, I failed to sleep on a stormy night. I kept hearing noises around the house, but whenever I went to investigate, I found no intruder. I was driven so sick by this that I packed up a small bag and caught the train to London Liverpool Street Station to stay with my mother's family. There they had previously offered to host me routinely since my mother's death. I have never gone back to Wickford. Instead, I asked my friends to collect my possessions into a moving van, and I instructed real estate agents to put my house on the market. Like I said before, the reason for my move to London is simple, but holds a very shocking legend. The reason that I moved to London is that the police called me in my first afternoon at my aunt and uncle's house. They informed me that there had been a break-in at my Wickford residence, but that nothing had been taken. Instead, one word had been scrawled on walls all over the house: cold, story 6. I'm afraid of the dark. I've always gotten scared of the dark easily. Maybe it was the stories my older brother used to tell me when we were little, always explaining in depth how there were monsters under my bed, and how if I left my closet open at night I would be dragged screaming into the darkness. Looking back now, I can see how foolish I must have looked to my parents, such as peeing in the bed the first time my night light had burnt out, or the time I had gathered all the pillows in the house to build a fortress, which I then defended with a flashlight and plastic hockey stick. I was always so skittish and terrified of the things that were never there when I awoke. It must have been hell on my parents to have raised such a frightened child. Perhaps I would have overcome my fear in my high school years, if not for the admittedly funny antics of my older brother, where he had hidden himself under my bed and convinced several of his friends, my girlfriend included, to hide inside my closet. So to make sure the plan came off without a hitch, and to prevent anyone from spoiling the joke, he called my cell phone and told me to meet him at the local gas station to pick up some chips and pop for our zombie movie night. I was so gullible to fall for his trick, thinking that he just wanted some snacks and drinks. For us and our dates that night, it was about an entire hour later that I finally realized he wasn't showing up to the gas station, and it was starting to get dark out. So I grabbed our junk food and started heading home, trying to keep ahead of the long, dark shadows that were dragging themselves across the town as the sun began to settle behind the hillside. Luckily, my fear of darkness didn't manage to break my nerves, so I was able to climb the front steps and get in sight just as the last of the light in the sky went dark. But there I was, alone in a dark house. I dropped the snacks at the door and went fumbling desperately through the house in search of a light switch. Yet every switch I hit did nothing. It had been the work of my brother's friend, Derek. He had flipped the breakers the moment they had seen me come jogging towards the house. But at the time I was just a frightened kid searching for the safety of light. Asterisk thump. Asterisk I heard a noise upstairs. Asterisk thir. MP asterisk I heard it again. Asterisk thwump. Asterisk I ran to the closet and searched for a flashlight in the blinding darkness, my hands fumbling around as I desperately rummaged through coats and shoes until my hand finally fell on that sweet little tool. Asterisk click asterisk I ignited a beam of light into the house with a single thumb movement, giving me the sense of safety I had so desired. Using my newfound weapon against the darkness, I took a deep breath and made my way towards the stairs. So I proceeded slowly, taking each step one at a time, trying to be as brave as I could, during which it seemed as if an eternity had gone by until at last I reached the top, when suddenly all my bravery disappeared because my door was open. Every other door in the hallway was closed, except for my own high-grip he flashlight tightly in my fist, and I made my way towards my doorway, shining my weapon of light into the room. I took several steps into the room, when suddenly I heard a noise, sending my anti-brain into a frenzy of terrified thoughts, causing me to instinctively drop the flashlight and dive into my bed. Only after I had wrapped myself into a ball under my covers did I hear a soft sound coming from my closet, a sound almost like giggling but stifled under someone's hand. But before my brain could translate and process the information, a pair of hands reached up from below and grabbed me. I screamed and attempted to get free, when suddenly I felt the covers around my body become tight, and I was pulled shrieking onto the floor, upon which time I pissed my pants and started bawling my eyes out as my brother emerged from under the bed laughing, and everyone else was standing around me having a fit of laughter that was turning faces red. I realized what had just happened. After that night, my girlfriend broke up with me, possibly out of embarrassment, and possibly because the story spread throughout school like a wildfire the next day. It was the worst time in my life, and it was all because of my brother and my fear of the dark. So I planned to get even with him, spending weeks writing out various ideas and storing them away in my closet to prevent unintended eyes from reading my notes. Every night I'd think of better and better plans, going through at least 200 pages during that time. Must have been a month that went by when I was finally ready to get my revenge. So on the weekend our parents left us alone at home while they were gone from town. I hid myself in the closet across from my brother's room, making sure to phone him before he got home from his girlfriend's house. I told him the power had gone out and that I had been electrocuted very badly when I had tried to cut an exposed wire on the old TV in his room. I cried and make choking sounds as I had learned in drama class, and told him how I was scared and hurt, all because I had simply wanted to get revenge on for his prank. I'm sure my lie worked, because he had run down the street and burst in through the front door only 10 minutes later. Then he bounded through the darkness up the stairs, tripping and knocking over things in the hallway, all thanks to my new knowledge of turning off the power breakers. He threw his door open and screamed into the darkness for me, yelling things like, I'll call an ambulance, and I'm sorry I ever scared you. Were some of my favorites. But I think the best part was when I emerged from the darkness behind him and turned on the flashlight. He spun around and I could see tears streaming down his face. You bastard, he shouted, and he gave me a tight hug. I didn't think you would do something so mean just to get revenge for a prank. I smiled at him, and then I pushed him away from me. But that was just a prank of my own. This is the revenge part, I said as his eyes widened and he was pulled into the closet, screaming. Now, to be honest, I was never afraid of the dark because of the stories my brother told me. I've only ever been afraid because he was right. I had only been so terrified of my brother's because I had thought that it was the darkness coming to get me. For failing to uphold my side of a bargain, I had promised them that I would hand over my brother in exchange for them to stop tormenting my dream. And before that moment I had been considering letting myself get taken in exchange for his safety. But I guess it was that prank that finally did it. Bravo, you instead got yourself taken. And by the monsters in the closet, brother, maybe you'll find a way to get back at me from beyond the darkness, or maybe he's just been digested in a monster's belly. But all I know is I'm still afraid of the dark. Story 7. How lives inside a shiver of terror runs through me, and I'm awake, gasping. I lay still, fists clenched in my sweat-soaked sheets, shaking from the nightmare, forcing my eyes open. I confront the darkness, my breath hitches in my chest as my eyes desperately search for something to focus on, but there's nothing. This is what they call cave darkness, Heen tells me, an absence of light so profound your brain goes a little haywire. I don't know how long I've been down here, minutes, months, or years. I sleep, I dream, I awaken, I relieve myself. I scrape moss from the floor for nourishment and water from the walls for hydration. Then it's back to sleep. My bones are sharp, and my skin hangs from my wasted body like an ill-fitting wetsuit. And nightmares fill my every sleeping hour, and most of the waking ones as well. My hallucinations have reached the point where I can feel the demon's hot breath on my cheek, smell the rotting of the flayed and orchard creatures that hunger for flesh in the dark corners of my cell. I don't know how I got here. I just awoke one day, still in my bed, in utter black. Normally, I had my fear of the dark under control, but this darkness was different. Not just the absence of light, but the presence of something else, an inky black terror that seeped into my very bones. I wonder if this is he. Lines, if maybe I was a bad person, or if there had been some kind of twisted mistake. I hope for so long it was a dream, but can a dream stretch for eternity? Delirious, I stumble from the damp, reeking bed and crouch beside it, my hen still on it. I had gotten lost once, stumbling around my tiny prison, smashing into the jagged rock of the walls in panic. When I finally fell to the floor, I could feel the pain and the hot, sticky blood that came with each fresh wave of agony. I let unconsciousness take me, falling straight into the night terror's claws, and when I awoke, I see R.A. rolled across the floor, groping with my hands until I found the cold metal of the bed frame, the dream. It's always the same and always different, composed of my deepest fears and the darkest of sins. Every situation is new, a fresh horror born of my imagination, but the feeling is the same terror, unnatural, freezing me in place, an unwilling subject of the acts of horror and atroc. I.T.Y. committed a wall of metal gears, ripping through a town in a spray of gore and rock, killing all before it. Then coming for me a spider, inflated, huge, wrapping me up when she stops and explodes, chowering down smaller spiders with needle-sharp fangs, a child viciously torn from my body, I a madman wielding modified surgical tools. Animals abused and killed, then revived, eager to visit the sins of those who killed them upon me, not caring where their pound of flesh came from. My family set ablaze, screams tearing through the crackle of fire, dolls come to life with jagged porcelain hands, slicing and tearing, clowns with jagged red mouths and empty eye sockets armed with acid-filled water balloons, hen garrets. A parade of fears, and always the helplessness. I wish for oblivion, for this torture to end. I wonder how I'm not dead already from starvation or infection. Sometimes my hallucinations aren't as bad as dreams, but I can shake the feeling that they're only there to disorient me, to give me false hope. My mother's voice telling me to hang on. My father weeping, my husband telling me to come back to him, and, worst of all, my children calling out for me. At first I tried to search for them, but I was surrounded by rock, a silent crushing tomb. I lay in the bed, fighting sleep, then succumbed. The dream is the fear. And of course, I'm sitting on a hill, lazily flying a kite. My lucid mind is wary, searching for danger, and finding none. I turn me eyes back to the sky and assess the dark clouds. A drop of rain steamer ikes my face and I flinch, but it is only rain, no acid, no pain where the water struck. Thunder rumbles, and my mind clicks. I turn back to the sky and try frantically to pull the kite in. The rain makes the kite string strangely slippery, and as I examine it more closely, I realize it is thin copper wire. As I am staring in horror, the wind abruptly tears the wire I had managed to gather from my hands, and I attempt to let go of the kite completely. Nothing. My fist remains tightly clenched around the wire. A flash, and I tense, but there is no jolt. I stare upward, frozen eye, in place, bracing for the pain, and it hits. A white-hot flare runs through my nerves, searing me from the inside out. Again, and I close my eyes, wishing for death. The last time I sue, CK in my breath as my body is flooded with the agony, and open my eyes, a blinding light hovers over my head, and as I try to turn to the side, something stops me and triggers my gag reflex. I retch and spasm as voices around me bark concerned orders at me and each other. Stop moving, miss, you're okay, but you have a tube in. There's been an accident, my hind reels. And I have so many questions, I try to talk around the tube and gesture frantically with my hands. The heart monitor beeps erratically, and the nurse comes around to my side. Here, sweetie, this will help you sleep. You need rest now. I struggle harder. My blind panic back. I don't want to sleep. I can't bear to dream. What if I open my eyes and I'm back in that cave? Darken claims me, and for the first time in an eternity, I have a dreamless sleep. When I open my eyes, the tube is gone. Light is streaming in the window, and despite my aches and pains, I feel great. My husband is sitting next to me and jumps from his chair upon seeing my open eyes. I knew you'd come back to us, he says, wiping tears from his face. The door swings open, and in the doorway stand my parents, grandchildren in tow. I look at my kids and begin to cry. I never thought I'd see them again. They rush into the room and jump onto the bed. I feel no pain as I hold them, and my son tells me he loves me and missed me. My daughter admonishes that if I ever go away again, she run away from home. I laugh and promise them I'll always stay with them. My parents smother me with hugs and kisses, then shoo the children out of the room ahead of them so my husband and I can speak. I ask him how long I was out, and he tells me 2 days. My mouth opens in shock. I can't believe that eternity was only 48 hours. He looks me dead in the eyes and tells me, you die. You're here stopped for a full 3 minutes, and when you were brought back, you were comatose. Then, yesterday, your heart failed again, so the staff resuscitated you again. But this time you woke up. The horror that fills me is profound. Was it hell? Was it an elaborate dream? I resolved to never tell any of that dark, rancid cave where my subconscious was held prisoner. Life goes on, and I recover almost completely. Physically, it's like nothing ever happened. The nightmares still occur, but less. It may be that this place exists only in my head, a hell perfectly suited to me, and now that the pathways have opened, I'll always carry that darkness inside of me.